Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Effective Resume Thursday. We're very glad you're with us. It's June 10th, 2021. Please note that this event will be recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you post a comment in the chat box or have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your comment, name, and picture to appear. For those people on Zoom, if you have a question, as soon as you think about something, open that chat box up and put it right in the chat box. For those people watching on Facebook, you're welcome just to enter your questions into the comment field, and I'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. All right, we may have time at the end of this session to review one or two resumes today live online. If you'd like to submit your resume, you may do so by clicking on the where that little blue arrow is, where it says file, and you can attach your resume and you can send it to me if you'd like to send it to me only. If you'd like to delete your header information, please do so before you submit your resume, because remember, your information will be published on Facebook and YouTube until all the electrons stop electronically connecting with each other. So if you'd like to do so, please do that. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I started a website in the Dallas-Fort Worth area called careerdfw.org. It was a way for people who were unemployed in the DFW area to find out, hopefully, everything they need to know about their job search and put it in one place. In 2012, I started a second website, careerusa.org, to help people outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area in their job search. I've written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon if you're interested. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007 when the leader of the group got a job and said who wanted to take over. And I'll tell you about our upcoming programming tomorrow morning at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. And if you're interested in finding more information out about getting a free practice interview, please reach out to me and I'll be glad to send you the information. As the crew likes to say, practice early, practice often. Don't wait till you have an interview scheduled. Practice now so you'll be ready to go. All right, at the end of this session, we'll be giving away two winners. Will be picked to win 1 month of unlimited use of jobscan.co. Jobscan.co is a program that you put in a job description, you put in your resume, it will match it, and it will tell you how good a match you have, what percentage, and give you suggestions on things and keywords that you need to add. So we'll be giving that away at the end of this session, so please hang with us to the very end. All right, our speaker today is Locke Alderson. He's a career consultant, a recruiting consultant. You also may see Locke, he does the LinkedIn presentation once a month on LinkedIn Tuesdays. And today he's going to talk about the resume is not dead. So Locke, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Jeff. I had to say the topic comes from a conversation I had with a friend that Jeff and I both know, a guy named Dirk Spencer several years ago. He said the resume is dying or is dead. And I talked to him again this morning and he said it's a dinosaur, but it still won't die. So that's kind of the topic we want to talk about. Is the resume really isn't dead today. But with that, I'll go ahead and share the screen. I think everybody can see that.
Yep, you're good.
And we'll do the slideshow. Come on. From the beginning. And we'll get off to a good start. Okay, and anyone who would like a copy of the presentation while Jeff is recording it, it is available. If you'll send me an email to lockealderson@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to send you a copy. So, having said about the resume not being dead, and my batteries are not, there it is. In the real world, we probably wouldn't need a resume, but most of us don't live that way. We live in a real world. So that's kind of the feeling that we have to have a resume to go about the job hunting process. So some thoughts about resumes and about people who make assumptions about resumes. Let's talk a little bit about that. And some of this material came from another speaker that's been on this resume presentation. That's Tony Bashara. And Tony's written a book on resumes. And there are any number of books that have been written, probably hundreds of books on resumes. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But if you go to Barnes & Noble, you can probably find 6 or 7 new books that have been written on resumes. What's the big deal about resumes? Well, resumes, writers of resumes, people who write a resume like you, may overestimate the power that the resume has to get them a job. And I'll agree with that. A resume, I don't think is designed to get you a job. It's designed to get you an interview. And a lot of people assume that a resume actually gets read. And I'll put that myth to bed. Again, I'd say that probably a resume gets scanned, but maybe only 80% of the resumes get scanned and maybe 20% actually get read. And the number of resumes, again, people underestimate how many resumes get response to a posting. But again, it's probably a lot larger than you think that it is. And the qualifications of the people overestimate the qualifications of the people who read or review resumes. Again, it may simply be a clerk in HR or recruiting that's actually screening the resumes. They have the wrong content. People put in the resumes the things that don't need to be said and omit the things that need to be said. And they assume the reader will understand the content. Again, if we're working with a high school graduate, again, they may not understand a technical resume. And likewise, one size resume covers all. Again, those days are long dead where you have one resume that covers every possible application that you can have. Again, you have to design your resume to the position you're applying for. And again, that takes some customization with each one you send out. And lastly, people assume that more is better. They'll make a long resume, 5-6 pages, or less is better. Sometimes people cut it down to 1 page. The ideal is something closer to 2, 2.5, maybe 3 pages of a resume. So why even have a resume? Again, what's it really used for? Well, as I mentioned, it's kind of a piece of advertising. It's designed to generate an interview. It's designed to pique the interest of the reviewer to pick up the phone and call you or send you an email. It's also designed as a script for the interview. I don't know whether you've been in an interview when the hiring manager takes a look at your resume. Let me take another look at your resume. They open it up and look at the second page and back to the first page. Again, that first page gets double exposure, but you're probably going to be asked questions based on the content of the resume. And lastly, after the interview, you may be the reminder of who you are. I know when I had my own recruiting firm, I had a candidate interview for a job with a technical firm here in town. Hiring manager actually interviewed 40 candidates. How any one manager can remember that many candidates, I don't know. But my candidate did make it to the second round of interviews before the job was finally canceled. So it's a reminder of who you are. What needs to be included, what should be excluded from the resume? Well, a headline or a marquee. Think about a movie theater. It has the title of the movie that the moviegoer wants to go to see. If the title is not on that marquee, the reviewer or the moviegoer is not going to attend that theater to see it. So you need a headline. It needs a summary, which is a brief overview of your resume, which is already a summary. It includes your areas of expertise, what you've done, what you've accomplished, and some bulleted examples that support your resume, support your headline. It also needs to have keywords from your job posting. This is part of the customization I was talking about. But even so, as I mentioned, there are a number of thoughts about resumes. If you were to give your resume to 100 recruiters, you'd have at least 100 different opinions. Again, one of the reasons that is the case, because everybody has their own opinions. So what makes a resume really great? Well, it's organized and easy to scan, to go through in 5 to 10 minutes. It's understood. It's concise. It's usually, as I said, about 2 pages or less. 1 page maybe for new grads, and 3 or 4 pages for a technical or executive type resume. If you have more experience than say 10 or 15 years, you probably want to alter that and list it under a section called prior professional experience and just list the job title, the company, and use maybe 1 line of your duties or an accomplishment. Your resumes also should have information about how to contact you on it. And it clearly explains your duties and advertises your skills. So that's some ideal resumes. And what's happened with this one? Many of you have encountered the so-called resume black hole. You've sent your resume into a job posting and you never hear anything. Well, with the advent of the internet a number of years ago, that allowed you to send out multiple resumes in a given day, as opposed to having to write the resume, address an envelope, stick a stamp on it, take it to the post office for mailing. But companies adopted, because of that, they've adopted software to be able to deal with that stack of resumes that you see later. That stack of resumes tends to weed out candidates, as opposed to having everybody read your resume. So one of the things that you encounter with that software is often called an applicant tracking software. And there are at least 100 different software packages that fall into that category of an applicant tracking software. Again, what is it? It's simply a piece of software that takes the information from your resume and inserts it into a database. It matches up each field of your resume with a field in the database. So some things about applicant tracking software, you don't want to use a header or footer for your contact information, because sometimes the applicant tracking software will ignore the content in the header. Don't use text boxes or resume templates. Again, the applicant tracking system may ignore the formatting that you've come up with using the template or the text box. Don't use shadow or fancy fonts, because that can cause some problems. We'll take a look at a fancy font in just a minute and what it does. And don't use centered or proportional spacing. You want to line up your resume to the left margin. Again, one of the things about that, if we take a look at that, the resume is not dead. Well, let's take a look at some of the thoughts about that. You've got a good resume, and yet it's not getting your response. So what's going on? Let's take a look at some basic statistics. For each job posting, people say, perhaps 200 people say, that's interesting. Maybe 100 actually submit a resume. 75 resumes end up in the B pile, often because they've been screened out by the applicant tracking software, which is what the applicant tracking software, one of the things it's designed to do is to winnow down the number of resumes to a workable group. So of 25 that might get reviewed by a real person, I know 5 to 10 might get a phone interview. When I was actually doing high volume recruiting, usually it was 5 or 6 candidates that I want a phone interview. And maybe of those, we'd invite 3 to 4, maybe 5 in for a face-to-face interview, and we'd make an offer. In my case, I probably averaged 80 to 85% of the offers that were extended were actually accepted. Moving on further, let's take a look at resumes that actually generate interviews, get attention. Okay. You need a headline. Generally, the headline is the job title of the position that you're applying for. Again, remember I mentioned the matching up the job requirements from the job posting in the database with the headline on your resume. Needs a summary, which is basically a value proposition, which conveys the information that this is what I've done for my employers. By implication, that's what I can do for you. Also needs to state and relate your skills and keywords from the posting. What are your accomplishments? What were the results of performing your duties? It needs to be visually appealing and easily read and understood. Again, it needs to be proofread. Keep those typos and misspelled words and grammatical errors out of it, because those are the kinds of things that get you eliminated when it's actually read by someone. One of the questions that you want to ask yourself is, what percentage of the job requirements do you match before you should apply for a position? Another question that you can ask is, what's the value of a headline and summary on your resume? Well, they actually do get read. Well, let's take a look at some resume basics now. What's the big deal about real estate? Really, it's generally about 2 pages, unless you're a new grad, maybe 1 page, or have a more technical resume or an executive resume, which can go 3 or 4 pages. Exception to that might be an application or a resume for an academic position, for a teaching position, which can run 8 to 10 to 12 pages long. What's the deal about the format? Well, some of the formats you want to have a type font that's easily understood, like Arial or Calibri or Tahoma, Times Roman, Garamond, Cambria, and Helvetica. No fancy fonts. The reason for the difference of the font sizes that are there is Times Roman is a little bit smaller font than the others that are mentioned there. Margins, generally you want 1 inch all the way around. I mentioned my hiring manager that interviewed 40 candidates. I'm sure he used the resume to take notes on the candidate while he was doing the interview. Needs to be scannable for an applicant tracking software, and again, job boards and email. Again, job boards frequently use some type of applicant tracking software to keep the resumes that they have to be able to put them in their database. Bullets, underlining, bolding, italics, graphic, and shadows. I've seen a number of resumes in the last couple of years which have used extensively used bullets. I have a problem with that only because I've asked in 5 to 10 seconds, which bullet am I asked to pay attention to? Well, we'll take a look at some resumes that are bulleted and how you can improve on that. Underlining, italics, and bolding, again, you want to keep your resume as basic as possible. And you don't want to use text boxes, headers, or templates. I've mentioned that already. You want your contact information. You want it easy for somebody to get hold of you. And I mentioned zip code in there on your LinkedIn URL, because if your LinkedIn URL is in your resume, it can be, someone can click on that while it's online and it will take you to your LinkedIn profile. Zip code, because zip code is the key factor in job boards finding candidates. I know when I was a recruiter, we'd look for candidates who were within 20 to 25 miles from the location of the job, simply because candidates don't want to drive much more than that. So that's how they do that, is based on zip codes. And when job boards adapted to that, you can notice on most of the job boards that the default setting for distance is 25 miles. Headline needs to have a laser focus. Again, if you don't know what you want to do with your headline, how is the computer or the reader of your resume going to know what you're looking for? The recruiter may be working with multiple job openings at any one point in time. In your summary, again, concrete examples can help you win the battle to get an interview. Skills tables, if you have technical skills, frequently easy to read. I know when I was doing IT recruiting, I'd want to know what the candidate background was in terms of the systems that they'd worked on, what software, what hardware, and it's easy to scan that on a table on the first page.
Can you go back 2 slides for a second?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Can you go back 2 slides for a second?
Okay, that one?
No, two before that. Oh, sorry about that. That's right. One more. One more.
Okay,
Thank you.
that one too, huh?
No, that was good. That's the one I wanted to see. Thank you.
Okay. And those are statistics that a professor at Cal State University in San Francisco put together. Okay, those statistics. But they're fairly accurate based on recruiters that I've talked to in terms of, they may get it. I know when I ran a posting in Minneapolis, St. Paul for a Siebel recruiter, when I'd moved over to Oracle and they still supported the Siebel product, had 75 responses and 50 of those didn't even have the word Siebel in the resume. So they were immediately no, moved over to the no pile. Okay, did that answer the question about looking at the profile there? I'm going to move on. Here's a resume in Wingding. If you've ever played around with the fonts up on the Word, on the toolbar on Word, about the different fonts, this is what it actually looks like. I got a resume one time. It was a 7-page resume in Wingding, and I copied just the first page of it. I haven't ever translated it, but I would imagine it's translatable if I wanted to take this and run it back through Word. But again, I've not spoken that. I don't speak Klingon either. So that's a reason to keep your resume fonts pretty straightforward and simple. Let's continue with some more resume basics in terms of formatting your experience section. Again, I like the company name, location on the left, and the dates over to the right, followed by a tagline if the company is not well known. I worked for a company called Mostech, which at the time was the world's leading producer of random access memories. They went out of business in 1983 when they were acquired by another company. So if the company is not well known, a one-line tag can help identify that for the reader. You want your job title and duties and responsibility, not more 1 to 5 lines, 1 to 4 lines, and follow it up with having your recent experience, follow up with some bulleted results. Again, the difference between duties and responsibilities, somebody who just says that versus somebody who's added their accomplishments or achievements, again, can make the difference between getting that telephone call or not. Keywords, you want them more than once. I mentioned that Siebel example when I was looking for a Siebel consultant. The candidate who had Siebel in their resume once, maybe they were a Siebel user. If they'd had it 10 times, they might be a Siebel consultant who had actually installed the product. If you happen to use acronyms, the first time you use it, spell out what it is, even though it may be a well-known acronym like financial planning and analysis. FP&A is a recruitable term that the recruiters recognize, or CPA or MBA. Again, some of those are well-known. You don't have to spell them out. But AMA, which AMA? Because there are about 22 different AMAs, American Management Association, American Motorcycle Association, etc. You want to have your education, experience, and awards. All too often on education, we just simply see somebody's degree. They don't talk about whatever certifications or awards they might have had or what they've done to keep their education current. You want to omit references and pictures. The exception to having pictures is on actors and models. It's okay to include a picture with that. But otherwise, you don't want to do that because you don't want your resume eliminated because somebody might discriminate against you. So they just throw those resumes away. Spell check and grammar. I can't mention that frequently enough. Again, checking the spelling of your words, because some words, like more frequently misspelled word, like if you don't check it, manager, I've had people omit a letter there and it's manger. Again, that's a word that will pass the spell checker. And check numbers and dates. Telephone numbers in particular, make sure that you check those a couple of times. I have a tendency to transpose digits when I'm typing on a computer. Does everybody lie or exaggerate on the resume? Don't. Again, white lies, exaggerations, you'll get caught because there's too much information about you out on the internet. Okay, avoiding the Résumé Black role. Read the posting, and if you don't match the qualifications, say 75 to 80%, don't apply. I know why those people in Minneapolis applied to the position for Siebel consultant with Oracle, even though they didn't have Siebel experience, because Oracle was a major employer up there with maybe 500 employees in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. But again, I wasn't recruiting for those. I was recruiting for a Siebel consultant. You want to have a scannable resume, as I mentioned. Limit your use of bold and underlining. And don't put your contact information in the header, because sometimes the headers don't get read by the applicant tracking software. Okay. Let's take a look at my resume for a quick minute. If you notice those things on that, again, I've got my name, my address. I don't have a street address, which you don't need anymore. But I do have a zip code, which is how recruiters, and a phone number where I can be reached. I've got a headline for the job title that's there. I've got a 4-line summary. I've got a couple of bulleted accomplishments for this position. And I've got one professional experience. This is a summary of my experience with Lee Heck Harrison and what I did there. So you can notice some things about that real quickly. I had to put that together when I went to work for Lee Heck Harrison. Had to put a resume together for them, even though I had the job offer before I had that. So one of the ways that you can find out what to put in the resume is to dissect the job posting. What do I mean by that? Identify the job requirements, prepare a table, 2 rows and 2 columns. And in the left column, the top line, you want to put the company's requirements. The second line, you want to have what are the requirements. The right side, the right column, you want to have your experience and how you match up to that experience. That can be used, that table that you put together can be used as middle paragraph in a cover letter, or often called a T letter. And you can also use that table as a guide when you have a phone interview. These are the things that they've said they were looking for in the job posting. Let's take a look at an example of that. This is an actual job posting. A candidate I was working with when I was with Lee Heck Harrison. He was looking to go to work for DXC Technologies here in Richardson. Take a look at the number of requirements that are there, the education and experience for it. This was the description and that. You want to take that and insert it in a job table. This is the experience, the company, and the experience required, how that individual's experience lined up with that. Okay. You can take that, and he took the title of the position, Global Sales Executive. He put his summary that's there, and he had 3 bulleted accomplishments from this table that are there that are tailored to support this particular headline. Once you've done it a couple of times, it'll be easy because those bulleted accomplishments are pretty straightforward, can be used multiple times. The next thing that he did was to say, this is another job requirements table that you can use during a phone interview. This happens to be, for me, when I did a job interview, I had your requirements for the position, what they were looking for, and these are how my qualifications stacked up with that. I mentioned table cover letters. Again, most cover letters consist of 3 sections. The initial section of where you found the job, the middle section of how you match the requirements of the job, and the third section of getting together to talk about your background and experience. Again, most of those kind of table letters, actually, most cover letters like that don't actually get read, because that middle section is often too long, and you're asking somebody to read something like it. Matter of fact, a candidate I was working with one of the networking groups I'm in now, her middle section was actually 5 paragraphs long, and that was far too long. So what you could do is to replace that middle section of how you match the requirements, including your requirements of the job, my qualifications. And again, I'll call you or contact or follow up with you in the next few days to arrange a mutually convenient time to get together to discuss the position. I mentioned tables sometimes could cause problems for the applicant tracking software. If that's the case, you may want to just simply use my qualifications in the middle section of that cover letter. But you can also use that as we go on. Again, avoiding the black hole, you want to use the keywords as we've done there. The job posting, it's the #1 reason that matches the ATS will reject resumes. You want to include your accomplishments. These are the results of performing your duties. You want to do it with measurable results to the extent that you can. Numbers or percentages are the best, or perhaps it's you improved a process, or you reduced turnover, or you retained an irate customer, or you generated new business. It doesn't have to be that. Focus on getting your resume into the hands of the hiring manager. You can use LinkedIn to find the hiring manager, find out who it is. There are ways that you can search on LinkedIn. You can go to the company and you can do a company search, and then you can look at people there, and you can put in something like recruiter or HR to find out who the hiring manager is, or accounting or controller to find out who the person is that has that particular opening. Have someone in your network pass along your resume to the hiring manager and become an employee referral. I know when I was with Siebel Corporation, we frequently got resumes from Tom Siebel's office to take a look at. They always got a little bit more attention than resumes that just came in the mail, because we had to give feedback up the line. And if it's an employee referral, that company may have an employee referral bonus program. I know when I was started with Siebel, we had a $2,500 bonus for any new Siebel consultant who was hired. Use different delivery channels. Perhaps you want to send it a FedEx letter, or UPS, or send it a registered mail. Somebody has to sign for it. Frequently, I would get the comment, Purple Squirrel was a term that we used when the manager was looking for a perfect candidate. That perfect candidate is a candidate that has all the requirements that are met, all their experience that's required, the education, and they'll work for peanuts. Okay, so that's the Purple Squirrel. When I had that occasion, I frequently told hiring managers that I would continue looking for somebody like that. I hadn't found very many of them, but I had identified a couple of candidates I'd like them to take a look at in the meantime. And frequently they would interview a candidate, 1 or 2 of those candidates, and make a hire from that. The big deal about achievements, you can talk about the situation or star stories, situation, action taken, and the results. And you want to start with an active verb, and it's 1 to 2 lines describing the results. You can start with your performance reviews for ideas or LinkedIn recommendations, or if you were to write an article for the activity that you're proudest of, or an article in the Reader's Digest. They used to have a section called My Greatest Accomplishment. What would you want to write about? Those are the kind of ideas that you can have for your achievements. Use dollars and percentages where possible to convey the impact. Use before and after comparisons. Did it save money or make money, save time, make work easier, solve a problem? Those are just some questions you could ask. When I frequently look at some of the bulleted items that are on resumes, I ask the question, so what? What's the significance of this item? Does it tell a complete story? What resulted from the activity? Why was it important? Again, if you want this whole slide deck, send me an email at lockealderson.com and I'll be happy to send it to you. Let's take a look at some resumes now. Here's a resume of a candidate I worked with a number of years ago as an operations manager. Notice it has the title up there, the position he's looking for. It's got a good 3-line summary. It's got some skills identified up here, and it's got a description of his job in 3 lines, along with a couple of bulleted items of accomplishments that he has performing those duties. Here's another one. This one is all bulleted resume. Again, the loss mitigation, he's got qualifications. Again, the only problem with this one, not with this one, this one breaks it out so that his bulleted items, these were the things that he accomplished in performing these duties with JP Morgan Chase. This is a resume from a teacher, and she was looking to get out of teaching. And again, it's kind of crowded, but get it onto the slide. But again, we talked to her about her background, and she was looking to get out of education and teaching. It was suggested she do a slightly different format, and that was a hybrid resume format. There are 2 basic types of resumes, that being a reverse chronological, which is the more common. Probably 70, 90, 95% of the resumes I've read in my career were of that type. The functional resume, which recruiters have, would talk about your functions, your accomplishments, your skills. Recruiters tend not to like those because they tend to omit where you did it and when you did them. But in her case, we combined the 2 to be able to take a look at hers. So we've said she was looking for a position in customer relations, communications, or PR. Again, we broke it out. What were the things that she'd done in communications? What were the things that she'd done in administration? And what were the things that she'd done in sales? She does have a brief history of her employment down there at the bottom, as you can see that. Again, some final thoughts about final tips for avoiding the resume black hole. Don't apply if you don't match at least 75, 80%. Don't use a fancy font. Don't put your contact information in the header. You want to proofread your resume. Have a headline that means something. Add a summary. Oh, and by the way, if you have an objective on your resume, I would take it off. Most companies don't care about your objectives. It's only their objectives that really count, because they're the ones that are in the buyer position right now. And use the requirements table in a phone interview and as for talking points to cover during the interview. It's often a good idea if you have a phone interview and they've given you that question, well, tell me about yourself, and you've given your 30-second presentation or your 1-minute resume. At the end of it, you may want to have a transition question, something like, I've told you a little bit about me. Can you tell me a little bit about the ideal candidate that you're looking for? This will verify what the requirements are for the job that the hiring manager really thinks are important. Okay. Some resume do's and don'ts. Just repeats a number of things we've already touched on. I won't cover those. You can glance at them as you see them. Some final things about your resume I want to talk about. Remember that it's advertising designed to get you some interview. It has to have your contact information where they can reach, find you, to call you. It has to be easy to read and be understood. It needs a headline and a summary. It needs to say who you've worked for, what they do, and how you've done it, and keywords from the posting, and proofread. Jeff, I'm back to you.
Thank you very much, Locke. Nobody sent a resume in. If anybody, we do have time. If you'd like, we can review a resume if somebody would like to do that. If you want to put your resume in the chat box, I'll call it up here so we can view it. If not, we understand. But I mean, I think some of the important points is every bullet point has to have a result, because results sell your bullet point. You know, we talked about that you ask 100 different people what they think of the resume, you're going to get 100 different answers. You know, I think that's always very, very true, because everybody looks at a resume from a little bit different angle. So whatever I like may be different than what Locke likes, would be different than, you know, what somebody else is out there. So, all right, well, we've got a resume, it's been submitted, so let me download it here. We will take a look here. Let's see here. See if I can get to it.
While Jeff is doing that, I will mention again, if anybody wants the slide deck, just send me an email at lockealderson@gmail.com and I'll be happy to send it to you.
All righty, let me share this screen here. Let's see here. Let's view this thing so we can view it in one page. View page width.
One page, okay. First thing that I notice is there's no name at the top.
Well, I deleted that. I deleted the
okay.
name, and I
Okay.
deleted that information, so that's why.
Okay. Again, they have a brief skills table that's there. Again, honest, ethical, hardworking. Those are soft skills which are often hard to verify. I would use the real estate to talk about something that they've actually performed. Okay.
And, you know, I would maybe limit this to 9 bullet points instead of 15.
She's used, okay, they've used a table to create that. Sometimes those kinds of tables, particularly with the fancy bullets like that, those fancy bullets may not translate that way when somebody's done that, has actually entered that into a database, the applicant tracking software.
Right. So that's why, you know, just put in something, tab something, and then you've got a mix here because these are, I'm not really sure. I mean, Microsoft Word, Lotus, Excel, those are.
Lotus is a dated, I haven't seen Lotus for a long time.
Right. I mean, that's a different kind of skill. I would put that down by, you know, computer skills or something. That doesn't necessarily.
The other thing, Jeff, that I'll mention on this looks like a resume that one size fits all because there's no headline. What is the person looking for in the way of a job?
Yeah, instead of summary, put in the job title.
Put in the job title if you have one and what the job that you're looking for. Scroll on down. Let's take a look at some of what's there.
All right.
Again, notice here in terms of the description, I would line up as you have with the bulleted items at Data Vita, okay, underneath the McKesson, those don't line up. But you've got a hanging, so use the left margin or a consistent margin on your words that are there. Okay.
Oh yeah, yeah, see, this is something you don't want to happen because.
That's proportional type spacing.
Right.
And again, it looks a little unusual.
It'd be this one right up here. You'd be best thing to do is just left justify it.
Right.
And right. Oops.
Again, and looking at that as a cash poster, you know, those are the things that she's done. What were the accomplishments? What were the results of doing that? She satisfied some kind of requirements.
Yeah. Processed weekly defection reports. So what? What was the result?
No.
I'm not sure if you really need to put down months. I think you can just put down the years would be fine.
Michelle has a question there, Jeff, that's very important. It doesn't look like that on her end. That's the reason that you want to keep it basic in terms of a resume. Sometimes if you submit a resume to a database or an applicant tracking system or a job posting, save the resume as a text file and use that to send. That will capture the formatting that you've used.
Or you send it as a PDF file because.
Or submit it as a PDF file.
The PDF will make it look exactly like you want it to look like.
Right.
Because you never know what kind of software the person's going to be viewing this on, especially if maybe they're viewing it on a Mac instead of a PC. But once again, this sort of, all these things here, this tells somebody what you did, but there's no results. Okay, you prepare the daily bank deposit. So what? I mean, that's part of your job. That's in the job description. I mean, it doesn't tell us results of some sort, you do, prepare daily bank deposits consisting of, on average 56 entries. Give us some context of what this is.
Okay. Other than that, we've offered some hopefully constructive criticism. Okay, but it tells what her background is, what she's done. Is there another one possibly, Jeff?
Let's see here. I don't know anybody else. Oh yeah, here's another one. Okay, give me a second here. And
The answer to Leora's question, no, there's nobody at Career DFW that actually reviews resumes. It's Jeff and the rest of the volunteers.
yeah. Let's see here. Now let me share this.
Okay, again, I don't know that multifamily acquisitions professional is a title, or someone looking for an underwriting position. Are they looking for? It's not clear what the individual is looking for.
Yeah,
I would guess underwriting of a multifamily units, but again, that's a background in real estate. But again, that's just a guess. I can look at the resume.
Yeah, on my resume that you just looked at, I just transitioned into a new career field. So I
Okay.
didn't have it in the profile.
Again, it's often okay to put your software competencies down like that, particularly when you're in a position in a field like underwriting, which has some particular software packages people are looking for. Again, as an example there, in terms of the Lloyd Jones Capital, those are some of that's the size of the company. What were the results of performing some of those duties? You recommended a strategy, you reviewed underwriting analysis, and what was the result of reviewing the underwriting analysis and pro forma projections?
You do not need to list this. I don't think that's not important. But if there's something that Chris happened to mention, that would be something that could become a bullet point. But
yeah,
you don't need to list that you had a LinkedIn recommendation. That's not.
But you might want to list some of what he said in that LinkedIn recommendation and put his name after it.
Right. Commercial. Okay. Once again, you don't really need to have the months, just years only is really all you need to have, 2014 to 2016.
Again, here's an accomplishment that's mentioned there that closed 75 million deed in lieu and short sale workouts. That's an accomplishment kind of statement. Again,
Right.
You might want to use a bullet to highlight some of those. And again, you might want to cut it off here at residential realtor and you prior professional experience as a residential realtor and not list the dates. And you might want to take the date off of your BBA from North Texas as well.
Yeah, it's not important to have a date. They're going to be able to figure that out.
Again, scroll back up a little bit, Jeff, for that residential realtor. I would list that under a category called prior professional experience or prior experience and take the dates off. Again, bullets, Tammy, on that, the bullets, typically if they're on the left margin and you want to use left margins, and you can do that when you do that, bullets will not cause problems for the applicant tracking software unless you use the unusual bullets like diamonds and things like that.
So I tell you what I will do. I'm going to put right now in the chat box for everybody. Let me stop the share here. I'm going to put in the chat box now for everybody the sample resume, the sample T cover letter, and see, here's a sample cover letter, and I'll put in there our sample resume that has most of the formatting that we talk about. I know, Lenore, you want somebody to look at your resume. If you want to send it to me, I'll be glad to look at your resume. But quite frankly, I'm going to say, how close is it to the template I just sent you? If your bullet points don't have results, I'm going to say, so what? Why is this in here? Give me some kind of result. Something can be messed up. I mean, something can be measured. Let's see here. So, Lenore, you also said a resume writer recently insisted that the cover letter and summary must start with over 20 years experience.
Again, that happens occasionally. Those are specific requirements to that employer or that recruiter. Again, those are the things that you might want to truly customize something like that.
Right. Now, this is a resume writer. Once again, remember, you have 100 different people write your resume or look at your resume. 100 different people can give you 100 different responses. Personally, I would never say over 20 years experience. I think it's showing a little too much experience, but it depends on the level of the job you're looking for. Education, the top third of the first page, never. Education should be at the very bottom unless you just recently graduated school, whatever that is. And a resume should only be one page. Once again, if you're a brand new college kid or just graduated, if you're only in your early 20s, yeah, one page may be enough, but hopefully you have enough accomplishments to get it to 2 pages. Yes, the recruiter may not read page 2, but if there's enough keywords on that second page, it will help your resume get moved up into the resume.
And your objective with the resume is because it's scanned in 6 to 10 seconds is to get them to slow down and actually read it.
Right, right. And results are going to do that. If you put think about, you open up any book, and if there's a number on a page, your eye is going to naturally draw to that number because everything on that page is A through Z. The number stands out being different. So by putting some results in, by putting some numbers, dollars, percents, whatever, that will help draw somebody's attention to a different part of the resume because it isn't an A through Z character. So, all right. Well, Locke, thank you very, very much. Let's see here. Great information. I think I'll have to rename this, the dinosaur is dead, but the resume, but it just won't die. I think that'll help us out here. All right. Well, next week, Aaron Allatz will be with us. He's the operation director at Next Step Recruiting, big recruiting firm here in the DFW area. He's going to be sharing his top tips for your resume. So you're welcome to join us again next Thursday. If you'd like to get these, for those on Facebook or if those on Zoom and you couldn't get the one-page bio, the sample T cover letter, the sample resume, just send me an email to resume@careerdfw.org, resume@careerdfw.org, and let me know what you're looking for, and I will send you that information.
Jeff, one thing you mentioned about the resume, the bio that's there and that sample bio, it's often good to leave a bio like that after you've had a face-to-face interview. It's a reminder of who you are. It can also, the bio can also have a picture, whereas pictures are not generally regarded favorably when it's on a resume.
Right. Thank you. We're putting on training 5 days a week. We've done over 290 workshops here in the since a year ago, April. Hopefully you'll join us tomorrow morning at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. Our speaker is Jeff Crilly, who used to be a reporter at Channel 4 here in the DFW area, and he's going to talk about free publicity. He's started a Real News, Real PR News, I think is the name of his agency now, and it's done very, very, very successful, very well about publicity and about how to get your name out there. And so he'll be with us to share his story tomorrow morning at 9:30. Next Monday, our speaker is Jason Hopper, who's going to talk about outside the box networking, unconventional ways to get noticed. On Tuesday, our LinkedIn presentation is from Kurt Vondermatter. He's going to talk about LinkedIn from a recruiter's eye. Kurt spends over $10,000 a year on the full-blown recruiting package, and he's going to show us what it looks like. So he's trying to find you, and he's going to show us how he tries to find you. That's a very interesting presentation if you haven't seen it. Next Wednesday, for our interviewing Wednesday workshops, we'll be on session number 7, how to discuss compensation and how to discuss the circumstances around leaving your previous position. If there's any, you're not sure how to talk about how I was let go or whatever, it's a very good topic that you're going to have, because those are 2 questions that will come up in every interview. And then, like I said, next Thursday, Aaron will be with us to talk about effective resumes next Thursday. This session has been recorded. It is going to be on the Career DFW Facebook page, and later this afternoon it will be uploaded to the Career USA YouTube channel. Please follow us on Facebook. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We really, really would appreciate it. On the YouTube channel, it looks like this, the Career USA YouTube channel. Click on playlist and then select whatever list you'd like to see, resumes, interviewing, LinkedIn. And then don't click on the video. I wish I didn't have that there, but then click underneath where it says view full playlist. And then up will come a list from chronological order from newest to oldest, all the different speakers and the different topics that we've talked about every time in that playlist. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops, I put this in the chat box, but you're welcome to join the Career USA mailing list. I put out, you'll never be spammed. I control it. Nobody else can post to it. You'll get 6 or 7 emails a week. And the nice thing about it is every morning you will get the topic of the day along with the Zoom link. So you'll be able to just click right on it and be able to join our presentation every day. All right, now it's time to give away a month's unlimited use of jobscan.co. We're going to play the Price is Right Price is Right rules. Please enter a number in the chat box somewhere between 1 and 100, and it's the 2 closest numbers without going over. So we'll give everybody an opportunity to get numbers in there. Put your numbers in the chat box, please. Anybody else? Chat box, put your number in. Comment field on Facebook. You're welcome to do it on Facebook also. I'm going to count down here. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, our winning number today is 44. So it looks like we have 1 winner today, Daryl Atkins. We'll just have 1 winner today. So Daryl, if you will, please put your email address in the chat box, and that way I can make sure I will get you signed up. This will be for the month of July. So you will have that opportunity. If you will, please put your email address in the chat box, and that way I can make sure I will get you signed up. This will be for the month of July. So if you will, yes, put your name, put your email address in the chat box, and this will be for the month of July. So we'll get that to you here. You'll get an email on the very 1st of July all about that. All right, let's see here. Well, please remember, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Locke is a volunteer. I'm a volunteer. I've never gotten paid to do what I do. This is my little charity to help give back to everybody. We survive on donations. It helps pay for Zoom. It helps pay for any of the web names, web hostings, anything that I can't get donated. So please consider making a donation so we can continue to provide the service that we're doing to other job seekers in the future. So thank you for joining us today. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow morning. If not, have a great weekend, and we'll see you one day next week.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you
Jeff,
so much.
check it out. My
Yeah,
picture
thank
shows
you.
up now and I didn't do anything different.
You know, it's just, maybe you have to have the newest version of Zoom. I mean, maybe it's just the different way that Zoom logs in. You just, I mean, you never know. Computers.
Yeah.